The Duel and the Death. The desert wind carried the smell of dust and gun oil through the lonely town of Dustvale, a place where men's tempers burned hotter than the sun and pride was often worth dying for. It was barely morning, yet the street outside the Silver Spur Saloon was lined with townsfolk. Miners, drifters, ranch hands, and gamblers, all gathered to witness what Dustvale lived for, a duel. At one end of the street stood Elias Kane, a cowboy with tired eyes and a quiet heart. His black hat cast a shadow across his face, but the glint in his eyes told of a man who'd seen too much and cared too little to fear death. His life was a string of bad luck, a lost ranch, a dead brother, and a future that didn't seem to matter. He wasn't looking for trouble that night, but trouble had found him anyway. Across from him stood Jeb Randall, the saloon owner's spoiled son. Drunk, loud, and hungry for attention, Jeb had accused Elias of cheating during a poker game. Elias tried to walk away, but Jeb's insults cut too deep for pride to ignore. A shove, a drawn gun, a crowd, and before Elias knew it, the challenge had been made. A duel at dawn. Sheriff Tom Garrison, a man whose word was law in Dustvale, stepped between them now, holding a white kerchief. 10 paces, he said firmly. Draw when the cloth hits the ground, and may the quicker man live. Elias gave a slow nod, his right hand brushing the worn grip of his Colt. Jeb sneered, confident and careless. The wind held its breath. The kerchief fluttered down. 1 step, 2. The street fell silent. When it touched the dust, 2 shots cracked like thunder. When the smoke cleared, Elias staggered back, blood staining his shoulder. His gun had fired a fraction too late. Jeb's shot had grazed him, but not killed him. The crowd erupted in shouts. Sheriff Garrison stepped forward, eyes grim. Elias Kane, he said, you've lost the duel. You'll honor whatever terms the winner sets. Jeb grinned, lowering his pistol. Oh, I ain't killing him, Sheriff. I got something better in mind. He turned to a group at the edge of the crowd. A circle of wagons painted in bright colors where fiddles and tambourines had played the night before. The Gypsy caravan camped just outside town for the spring festival. From among them stepped a dark-haired girl, no older than 20, her eyes wide with confusion. She wore a flowing crimson dress and silver bracelets that shimmered like moonlight. Her name was Mira. I've been trying to court that girl for months, Jeb said cruelly. But her family's got rules. Says she can only marry by fate's will. Well, fate just smiled on me. Since I beat you, Elias, you'll marry her in my name. You'll be bound by their customs, and everyone in Dustvale will see you tied to a woman who don't even speak your tongue. The crowd murmured. Myra's father, a tall man with deep lines on his face and eyes full of mystery, stepped forward. In our ways, he said in a heavy accent, a duel's outcome binds destinies. If the stars choose this union, so it shall be. Elias clenched his fists. This is madness, he said. You can't make her. The old man interrupted gently. It is not we who choose. It is the wind of fate. By sundown, the ceremony was arranged. The gypsy camp glowed with lanterns and firelight. Strange, haunting music filled the air as the people danced around the flames. Elias stood stiffly before Mira, who refused to look at him. He had faced death without fear, yet standing before this silent girl, his heart pounded harder than it had during the duel. The old man chanted blessings in his tongue, tying their hands with a red ribbon. 2 souls bound by destiny's fire, he said. May the road you walk burn away the shadows of your past. The crowd cheered. Elias and Mira were now husband and wife. Strangers united by a cruel twist of chance. Later, in a small tent lit by candlelight, Mira sat silently across from him. She spoke softly, her accent thick but clear. I did not choose this, she said. Elias removed his hat, his voice low. Neither did I. Outside, laughter echoed and tambourines rattled. Inside, the silence between them grew heavy. Mira turned away, her eyes glistening in the dim light. Elias lay back, staring at the canvas roof, wondering how the fates could twist a man's life so cruelly. Yet somewhere deep inside, beneath the bitterness and disbelief, something stirred. A spark. a curiosity about the woman fate had thrown into his arms. And as the desert wind whispered through the tent that night, Elias Kane, the man who thought he'd lost everything, had no idea that losing that duel would lead him to the greatest discovery of his life. Firelight Hearts. The days that followed their strange wedding felt like walking through another man's dream. Elias Kane, once a free cowboy who answered to no one, now rode with a caravan of strangers. The gypsies moved like wind and music across the desert, their wagons painted with stars and flowers, their laughter echoing through the canyons. He was an outsider among them, but Myra's father, Petrov, a man of old traditions and wise silences, reminded him of his oath. A man who runs from fate, he said, runs from himself. So Elias stayed. He fixed broken wagon wheels, fetched water, and guarded the camp at night. The people began to trust him, especially when he saved 2 of their horses from a sandstorm. But Myra kept her distance. She was polite, but her eyes were walls. She spoke little to him, only what was necessary. Yet every night, Elias would hear her singing by the fire, songs soft and strange, words in a tongue he didn't know. Her voice wrapped around him like smoke, beautiful and haunting. He wanted to hate his situation, to call it unfair, to curse Jeb Randall and Dust Vale and fate itself. But every time he looked at Myra, something quiet inside him began to heal. One evening, while the sun melted behind the hills, Elias found Myra washing clothes by the river. Her sleeves were rolled up, the light catching the gold bangles on her wrists. He approached carefully, his hat in his hands. "Myra," he said softly, "I know you didn't want this. Neither did I. But maybe we could try talking instead of pretending we ain't here." She looked up, wary. "Talking changes nothing." "Maybe not," he said, "but it's better than silence." She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "You are a strange man, cowboy. You don't smile, you don't drink, and you don't lie. That makes people afraid of you." He chuckled faintly. "Guess I've given folks plenty reason." Her lips curved, just barely, into the ghost of a smile. "Maybe one day I will learn your story." That night, for the first time, they shared a fire. Myra played a small wooden flute, and Elias listened. He told her about his ranch, the one the drought took, about his brother, Samuel, who died of fever out on the plains, about how he wandered ever since, trying to find peace and never quite catching it. Myra's eyes softened. "In my people's tongue," she said quietly, "we have a word, Sarin. It means a heart lost in the desert." Elias nodded slowly. "Then I reckon I've been Sar my whole life." Weeks passed. The caravan crossed rivers, valleys, and ghost towns. Myra taught Elias to dance beneath the moonlight, laughing when he stumbled. He taught her to shoot a rifle, her hands trembling the first time she fired. The distance between them faded, replaced by something fragile and real. By the time the wildflowers began to bloom across the plains, they were inseparable. Elias still couldn't believe it, that the woman he'd been forced to marry now filled his days with light and laughter. He caught himself watching her more than he should, memorizing the way the wind played with her hair, the warmth in her smile when she thought no one was looking. One night, after the caravan stopped near the canyon ridge, Myra found him alone by the fire. "You never asked why I agreed to marry you," she said softly. Elias looked up from the flames. "Didn't figure it was my place. My father believes in signs. He said the stars chose you, that a duel's blood binds 2 paths that were once broken." "And what do you believe?" he asked. She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I believe sometimes fate must drag a man to where he belongs, even if he fights it." Elias's heart thudded. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And where do I belong, Myra?" Her gaze held his, deep and sure. "Here," she whispered, "with me." Before he could answer, a gunshot shattered the night. Men rode out of the darkness, rough riders, guns drawn, faces hidden beneath scarves. The caravan erupted in chaos. Horses reared, women screamed. Elias grabbed his revolver, pushing Myra behind wagon. "Stay down," he shouted. The men were bounty hunters. Come for him. Elias recognized their leader, Harlan Vex, a cruel man who'd once ridden with Jeb Randall's father. "You thought you could vanish, Kane?" Harlan sneered. Old Randall says you cheated his boy. He's paying good money for your hide. Elias fired first. A bullet tore through the firelight. The camp exploded into battle. Flashes, smoke, shouting. Elias moved with precision, every shot clean and cold. But there were too many. Then Mira stepped from cover, her eyes blazing, firing the pistol he'd taught her to use. She hit one rider square in the shoulder, enough to send him sprawling. But a stray bullet caught her arm, and she cried out, falling into the dust. Elias's world went red. He charged forward, tackling Harlan to the ground, the two men rolling in the dirt. The bounty hunter swung a knife, grazing Elias's cheek. But Elias drove his fist into the man's jaw, over and over, until Harlan lay still. When it was done, silence fell. The attackers fled, leaving the caravan battered but alive. Elias rushed to Myra's side, cradling her. Blood streaked her arm, but she smiled weakly. "You fight like a man who has found his stars again," she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers, voice breaking. "You're my stars, Mira. You always were." When dawn rose over the desert, the camp was rebuilding. The air smelled of smoke and rain. Mira sat beside Elias by the fire, her arm bandaged, her head resting on his shoulder. Petrov approached quietly. "You have proven your bond," he said. "When the stars bind two souls, not even blood can break them." Elias looked at his wife, truly seeing her for the first time, and felt something settle inside him. Peace, belonging, love. He took her hands in his, rough and gentle. "When I lost that duel," he said softly, "I thought I'd lost everything. But that day, I reckon fate just set me straight." Mira smiled through tears. "So you believe in fate now?" He kissed her hand. "I believe in you." And as the sun rose over the canyon, painting the world in gold, Elias Kane, the cowboy who once walked alone, finally understood that losing a duel had been the best thing that ever happened to him, because it led him to the wife of his dreams. The end.